Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Zodiac Bandit, and today we're going to be recapping episode 83 of Campaign 3 of Critical Role. It has been a minute since we've done a recap because there just hasn't been an episode. There's only been two so far this year, which is, I think, one too few. Based on the schedule, it's one too few. But they were sick a couple weeks ago, so now we can finally have another episode, which I'm very excited about. So let's get into it. We start on Ruidus having just stepped through the bloody bridge. The party see what looks to be some sort of makeshift arrival encampment that surrounds the bloody bridge. This place has tents and a bell for some reason, and there are strange, unfamiliar flowers and plants all around them. There are spires jutting out of the ground, seemingly being pulled up from the ground by the bloody bridge and the force that it sort of creates here. Matt pulls out another sick map to show off the area for the party. The party only have a bit of time before whatever is following them up the bloody bridge comes through. Something to keep in mind, the party have a telepathic bond right now, so they can talk in their minds without giving anything away to their enemies. Orym jumps on top of Fern and takes a look around. Orym sees other Rylorans outside the fence of the encampment surrounding the bloody bridge. The party move behind one of the tents nearby to gather themselves. The possum that followed the party up through the bloody bridge before is biting on FCG's wheel, and they quickly put him into the bag of holding. And then Fern ends the polymorph spell, which is what made the possum a possum, because it's supposed to be a juggernaut. This likely kills the juggernaut. As the party get to the tent, they hear movement within. Fern casts Pass Without a Trace, and Chetney sniffs around and smells a Ryloran inside the tent. At this point, there's a flash that comes from the bloody bridge, and the Thought Eater emerges from it, and then another Juggernaut follows outside of it. Laudna casts Phantasmal Force on the Juggernaut to trick it that the party is running away in the opposite direction. He fails the saving throw, so now he is tricked. There's a group stealth check, Chetney with a 35, Laudna with a 25, FCG with a 26, Fern with a 20, Imogen with a 30, Orym with a 24, and Ashen with a 28. Pass Without a Trace, yet again proving its worth. Now time for initiative rolls. Orym gets a 24, Ashen gets a 23, Imogen gets a 20, Laudna gets a 19, Chetney gets an 18, Fern gets a 15, and FCG gets 2. Orym is up first. He posts up on the tent waiting for the person inside to come through and is holding his attack. Ashen is up. They do the same thing and wait for someone to come out from the tent. Imogen is next. She holds the spell Lightning Bolt in case the Thought Eater sees them, so she can strike in case. At this point, the Thought Eater is up, and he is looking around. It looks frustrated, and it lifts its hand, and the bell in the camp starts to ring. The Thought Eater then flies higher into the air. Laudna is up. Laudna hears howling off in the distance on the beginning of her turn, and she casts Darkness between the party, or between the tent where the party are and the fence. That is sort of the exit point. Chetney and Orym only see darkness at this point, and Chetney grabs onto Orym. Laudna then grabs onto Orym and pulls him through the darkness towards the fence. She needs to make a stealth check, as if there's too much movement, the Thought Eater might see them. She rolls a 1, a natural 1, and trips and pops her ankle, alerting the Thought Eater in the direction. Doesn't quite give them away, but does definitely sort of alert the Thought Eater. Chetney is up, and he continues to move toward the fence and bumps into it, and informs the others that he's near it, and then holds his attack for someone to come close to him. Fern is up, and she summons Mister, and then she runs through the darkness and hits the fence as well. Fern then decides to hold a Scorching Ray while inside the darkness. The Juggernaut is up, and he jumps to where he saw the fake party, but the darkness spell is also a concentration spell, so the spell ends, and he now sees the party is back in the other direction toward the darkness. At this point, a Ryloran inside the tent pokes its head out of the tent, seeing what's going on, and then decides to go back in. It is not having this fight today. FCG is up. They find a space where they can see the fence in between the darkness and cast Pass Wall to make an opening for everyone to exit through. FCG then moves up into the darkness with the others. Orym is up, and he finds the opening that FCG made and sees an alleyway through it. He also hears the howling at this point. Orym asks the others left or right, and the party's kind of split on that idea, so he picks to go down the alleyway to the right. He dashes and needs to make a stealth check. He rolls a 32. Again, Pass Without a Trace is cracked. It's only there for a little bit, but still. He hides behind a rock after moving, and now Ashton is up. They move up to FCG and grab them, and then dash through the hole that the FCG made in the fence. FCG and Ashton don't see Orym. They see the alleyway and start going to right, like Orym said. They hide up against the wall at this point. Imogen is up, and she casts invisibility on herself and heads out towards Orym. It's now the Thought Eater's turn, and they use Psychic Slam to pick up a large rock in the area and throws it at the Darkness Sphere. Everyone inside needs to make a dex save. Chetney, 22, taking 12 damage, but it's halved again, so 6 damage because he's a werewolf. Laudna rolls 15 and takes 24 damage and is knocked prone. Fern rolls a 12, so she also takes 24 damage and is knocked prone as well. They both keep up their concentration spells. Mr. Fails taking 24 damage as well. He is still alive, though. Laudna is up. She stands up, losing half her movement, and then walks to the fence, just barely being able to move beyond it. Laudna looks to the left to see what's over there, and she doesn't see anything pressing at the moment. Laudna then dashes a few feet to the left. Chetney walks through the hole in the fence, and Chetney dashes to where Orym is hiding. Stealth check from Chetney. He rolls a 23 and isn't seen by the Thought Eater. Unfortunately, he does not get past without a trace because he's a little bit out of the range of it. He is now next to Orym. Fern stands and goes through the hole as well. She dashes towards Orym, stealth check of 24. As she runs, she feels the Thought Eater sort of look at her. So she jumps into the ground, picking up some dust to try to cover herself with it. Mr. then leaves through the hole as well, but doesn't get very far, because he can't move much further. The Juggernaut then jumps back over towards to where the party was and lands within the Darkness spell, where no one remains. Two other Rylorans run towards the fence and open it up, going into the Bloody Bridge area. At this point, two massive, scaly panther-like creatures appear, and they have Ryloran riders on their backs. FCG is up. They move up closer to the rest of the group, but they have a low stealth check as they go. FCG is seen by one of the Rylorans, and they choose to hold Banishment. Orym is up. Orym then creeps behind the tent nearby and holds an air slash just in case one of the other Rylorans decide to charge them on the outside. Ashton is up. They rage. Imogen suggests everyone split up and turn into mists on their own. They do have that telepathic bond, so they will be able to sort of communicate where they are. Ashton runs up to the rock where Chetney is hiding and chooses to hide as well. At this point, two Ruby Vanguard members come through the Bloody Bridge. Imogen is up, and she runs up toward the tent and blocks the line of sight of the Ryloran riders on top of the panther-like creatures. Imogen casts Seething Storm on where the Darkness is, basically on top of the Juggernaut. She is no longer invisible because of this. The Thought Eater picks up another rock and moves closer to the party. As it moves close enough, FCG casts Banishment on it, and the Thought Eater fails, being banished to some other dimensional realm, making the rock fall, not hitting the party. The rock blocks the line of sight of the two Ryloran riders. Laudna is up, and she runs up to join the rest of the group, dashing to get there. Stealth check of 25, she makes it unseen. Chetney is up. He moves to the other side of the tent where Orym is and sniffs around a bit, but there's just a bunch of new smells around for him, so he's a little lost. He does see that there are more tents and encampments behind them, and they all seem to be quickly set up, much like the encampment surrounding the Bloody Bridge. The Ruby Vanguard members then run towards the Darkness and tells the other Rylorans to move up towards the Darkness as well. Fern is up. She runs behind the tent as well, and then dashes to go a little bit beyond it. The party see more people moving towards the Bloody Bridge. The Juggernaut is up, and it takes 11 damage from the storm that Imogen cast before. The Juggernaut starts punching the fence in front of them, trying to break through it. It's not like a wooden fence like the miniature map would show. It's kind of like rocky with some wooden parts, and there's like black-looking glass, as Matt described it. So, not what the mini shows, which, tends to happen in D&D. He misses the first attack on the fence, just rolled too low to break the AC, I guess, and then hits the second one, breaking a part of it, sticking his arm through Here's Johnny style. He then needs to make a dex save, which he fails, taking 10 force damage from the storm again. The Rylorans are up, and they start moving toward the darkness. One of the Ryloran riders moves over to where the party is, and the rider sees FCG. The other rider goes inside the Bloody Bridge encampment. FCG is up. They cast command on the rider to shush. And the rider actually fails. Now FCG needs to make a deception check to make themselves look like they are an ally to the rider. They roll a 25. I guess their charisma is pretty good. The rider nods and readies themselves for whatever comes through the fence wall. FCG moves up to join the others. Orm is up. He can hear many bells going off in the encampment surrounding them, and they hear tons of howling and a bunch more footfalls coming towards the camp. He asks what the play is, so the party decide that they want to stealth their way through the encampment, or they can try to blend in, and they choose to blend in. Group stealth check from the party. Ashton 14, Orm a 9, Imogen a 20, Fern a 14, FCG a 15, Laudna a 25, Chet a 27. They did not get passed without a trace because they're not trying to hide themselves and slip between encampments. They're trying to blend in, so they didn't get the benefit of the plus 10 from pass without a trace. The party see an army walk towards the Bloody Bridge. Some people are Ruby Vanguard, so they're regular races, humanoid, and some are Rylorans. Some members of this army eye the party as they walk by, but they aren't stopped. With Orm leading the way, they are able to find a tent, and it's empty. Laudna mends the fabric of the leather of the tent back together to keep it closed. They all squeeze together inside the tent, and they hear a bunch of humans of the Ruby Vanguard start yelling. Notably, they don't hear any Rylorans because they communicate telepathically. FCG recast telepathic bond at this point just to make sure they still have it when they are floating around. At this point, FCG feels the banishment end, so the Thought Eater is back. The party start to take their gaseous forms, and they feel the voice of the Tempest is with them. They feel their fingers turn into air at this point. They feel the search for the party is becoming more methodical and is moving closer to them. Lana quickly takes out the scry ball just to check it, and it is in fact blue. Odahan Thule is here. Luckily, they all transform into their wind forms, and at this point, they all exit out through the tent, the little gaps below, and they see about 40 soldiers getting very close to where they were. The party feel a strong wind here, even without the storm. It's hard to move. They would imagine with the storm, or with the larger storms of this area, that they would not have a very easy time moving around. They see a very dark dust storm that is about 20 minutes off from where they are. They know that it would be dangerous to fly within that. The party have no idea where to go at this point. And this is also a good point for the party to level up as they are now in a calm spell. Chetney takes a level in Bloodhunter and rolls an 8 on his hit dice. Lana takes a level in Sorcerer and rolls a 5 on her hit dice. FCG obviously takes Cleric and takes a 2. Rolls a 2 on a hit dice. Fern is still thinking what level she wants to take. Imogen takes Sorcerer and gets a 4 on her hit dice. Orm obviously sticks with Fighter and gets a 5 on his hit dice. And Ashton sticks with Barbarian and gets a 6 on his hit dice. Finally, Fern takes a level in Rogue, making her level 3 Rogue, and she becomes a Arcane Trickster and rolls a 2 on her hit dice. The party can see the camp and the Bloody Bridge below them. FCG tries to recall any landmarks from when they were dreamwalking. Anyone in the party can roll a survival check or a perception check as long as they've dreamwalked in the past to be able to recall something. Chetney and Orm are the only ones who roll high enough, Chetney with a natural 20 and Orm with a 26, so they're the only ones who recall anything. They look at Exandria and figure out north, east, south, and west by looking at it, and figure out which way the city is that they looked at through the telescope ages ago, back in the early portions of this campaign. The encampment below was seemingly built by both the Vanguard and the Rylorans in a very quick, hasted way. The party see that no matter which direction they go, they'll end up in a storm. It seems to be pretty rare to not be inside of a storm on Ruidus. They seem to be inside the gap or in an eye of the storm. Laudna looks for a safe place to land. They see a bunch of chasms and cracks in the ground. To the left, there is a mountain range, but the storm is about to consume it. They could land near it and walk the rest of the way. FCG and Imogen think they should go as far as they can in their gaseous forms, and Orm agrees. Orm and Imogen look to see if they can see Odahan from here, but they don't see her. They're a little too high up. The mountain range kind of goes in the direction of the city, so they fly off in that direction. They are moving extremely fast because this form moves stupid fast. As they get close to the mountain, the storm begins to consume it. They could go inside, and it's not impossible to move around in this form inside a storm, but it is very dangerous for sure. Matt describes it as they are in one of the many eyes of the hurricane that completely surrounds Ruidus. They need to make a choice to go towards the mountain or keep ahead of the storm and go as far as they can towards the city. They choose to stay out of the storm and go as far as they can. They can see the electrical light show going off inside the storm. The party starts to get lower to the ground as the sky is becoming very dangerous. As they fly, they see tree-like vegetation and a bunch of red brush along the ground below. They also see something running towards the storm along the mountain range. The party try close to see whatever it is, and they see about 13 buffalo-like creatures. They all have 6 legs and are extremely thick. They are cracking the ground as they go, and they all have a wreath of 7 or 8 horns each. The party think about using them for cover. Some want to talk to them, but some believe that it isn't safe. Most of the party want to keep on going. Fern and FCG, however, choose to get closer to the buffalo. They make an animal handling check to see if they can understand them better. FCG gets a 12, but Fern gets a 19. Fern can see that these are prey beasts, unlike bulls, they have very long noses that eventually curve down, kind of like an elephant. Some of them are very small, likely children. The bigger ones go from 9 to 12 feet long. FCG and Fern tell the others what they see, but the others tell them to catch up, so they do. They all gather up and see the storm front goes on for hundreds of miles, and the pocket within the storm is closing. The party is along the base of the mountain range at this point, and Ashton sees a handful of alcoves along the mountainside. Places to weather the storm, but they don't know how long it'll last. The party still have this gaseous form for about 7 hours. The party choose to land in an alcove along the base. It's about 25 feet wide, 10 feet tall, and goes about 30 feet deep. But it is safe from the wind from here. And the party at this point revert back to normal. It's very cold here, as it is going to be in an area like this. Chetney checks to see if they are followed, but there's no sign of anything pursuing the party. Ashton wants to see the scry ball. Lana pulls it out, and it's dark, so they are outside of the range of this ball's effect. Or maybe Odahan left. FCG looks up to Exandria to see if it's changed at all. It hasn't, but Matt explains that Ruidus is locked onto that part of the world, so even if it were to rotate, Ruidus would as well. The rest of the party look up and see Exandria takes up about 5/6 of the sky here on Ruidus, and Ruidus is very close to Exandria, much closer than it normally is, and now they can see the scope of it. FCG uses light to look around, and the party sees an old fireplace. This place has definitely been used for cover before. They find a rope that's not made from any normal rope material, and it's spongy and blue. Lana rolls a nature check of 21. She sees that it's made from some sort of fungus, but for fungus to exist, there needs to be a dark, damp space. Chetney uses his grim psychometry to see the history of the fireplace. He connects to the area, and he sees a shadow gathering tools and materials. The storm clears for this person, and outside of this area is a beast of burden. The shadow moves closer to the mount, but it runs off, and a crack in the ground opens up and a shadow eats the mount. The shadow waits. He tries to run, but he gets eaten as well. Chetney comes back to regular time and tells the others what he saw and tells them that there are tremors in the area. Does anyone actually know the Tremors movie? Because it's a whole franchise. I love it. Sorry to take a second to talk about it, but massive worms, man. They're sick. Anyway, moving on. FCG looks for signs of death in the area, and there are none. Imogen tries to feel Predathos, but she'd have to try to reach out in a dreamwalk state to do so. The party think that the rocks of this area are safe, so they shouldn't be eaten by any of the tremors. So the party take a short rest. During their rest, the storm hasn't let up yet. They can't see more than 20 feet beyond the cave entrance. Laudna summons Pate, and the party talk about if they can use the bag of holding without the Rylauren coming out to see if he's still alive. They can, they just have to think of the item they want and it'll come to them, so the Rylauren shouldn't be able to, intercept anything if he is still alive. Imogen notices a red shimmer in the air all around her. It's being drawn in a direction, and it's going to Fern. It's like they're connected. But she can't describe the feeling. Imogen calls Fern over, and as she gets closer, the feeling gets stronger. They felt this before, back at the dig site when the bridge was first opened. This feeling has always been there, but it hasn't been this strong, and it has not been visible before. Fern, at this point, also sees it. Imogen feels a connection with all Ruidusborn, and she gets a new feat. Imogen can use her sorcery points to give Fern, or other Ruidusborn, spell slots back that have been expelled, or used. Fern can also use her spell slots to give Imogen sorcery points. That is a very good feat. That is crazy. At this point, the party think about how this connection to other people, and not just Fern and Imogen. The party wonder if it means Imogen can steal magic from others and vice versa, but they don't believe it works that way. Fern wonders if her being Ruidusborn by design means she's off the grid to other Ruidusborn, as Imogen was born under Ruidus by fate. Imogen thinks it's actually due to her being born in the Fey realm under the Ruidusborn, which isn't natural. Chetney says they are both high-value targets either way. Imogen asks if she should connect to Predathos. The party is down for that idea. She should feel safe with them, after all. Imogen thinks that the anti-scry magic spell that they are under should protect her. Chetney isn't sure if they have the element of surprise anymore after what they just did at the encampment. Imogen closes her eyes and reaches out to Predathos. It doesn't take long for her to fall into unconsciousness. She falls and she feels the cavern vanish. She feels the presence of an ancient snore, a welcome connection, like she's never belonged to anything more in her life. She feels the tug down until it notices her. She feels it in every inch of her being, and it says, "Welcome, join us, wake us." Imogen needs to make a wisdom saving throw, and she rolls a 17. Imogen's very will crumbles, and in that moment of fear, she lets it all out and is pulled into darkness. She sees a bunch of red lights. One looks like Fern, and then she sees her mother, which is a much brighter light. There are a handful of these brighter lights all around. So there's two lights. There's dimmer red lights, and there's very bright red lights. They are all connected to her, and she feels them all, and they all look at her. They all say to wake us. She tries to fight it, wisdom saving throw again, 18. The red connections of the other Ruidusborn get stronger, and with all of her might, Imogen pulls back, and the darkness shatters, and Imogen is back in the cavern. She lets out a very loud scream, and the lightning marks on her body begin to brighten like an ember. Laudna grabs her and asks what happened. Imogen says that he's not awake yet. She's not sure if she'll be able to fight it off next time. Laudna wonders if Imogen is like a chosen one. Imogen doesn't think so. She thinks that they are all chosen, meaning all the Ruidusborn. The party thinks the others actually do need Imogen in some way. Laudna doesn't think if Fern tried to do that, it would have the same results. Fern felt the connection get stronger to Imogen when she flared up. Orym says that the Ruidusborn are going to make it happen one way or another, but she is the best way to stop it. He says that they need to keep going. Imogen says her whole life her mother has told her to run. Once you're in, you can't get out. That's why she feels her mother was trying to help her. Imogen is just worried that she might not be able to get out next time. Orym says that this is going to test her, and Ashton says it's going to happen one way or another. Orym says he is pressuring her, but he's also pressuring everyone else here. Chet thinks that Imogen is the key to all of this, and the words "wake us" and what Odahan did to try to awaken her power definitely feels like she's some sort of chosen one. Maybe Liliana is a double agent and is trying to help the party. Maybe that's why, with the bridge being up for this long, how have they not been able to release Predathos? Maybe Imogen shouldn't be here. Fern brings up the Rylorans that they've met in the past, and they seem to be on their side. Londa brings up the Imperium, and they need to figure out who the factions are up here. Fern wonders if Imogen is meant to wake the good guys up. Fern wants to help the Rylorans who are living here. She thinks that they're also being oppressed in some way. Imogen thinks that she could feel where the other Rudisborn were, and she recalls where the 12 bright red lights were, and she feels like they're in the direction that they were already going in. Marisha asks, above table, to sort of clear some things up, she asks if Imogen was exalted before they met Odahan and had that whole issue happen, or did what Odahan do make her become exalted? Matt says, based on Grim Verity writings, exalted are always exalted, they just need to be awoken. Meaning, Fern is not exalted and likely can't become one. You can't just be not one and then become one. You are always one. Odahan is a Rudisborn. Ludinus isn't, Jesus. Or at least he's hiding it in some way. Fern is glad Imogen waited to try to awaken them and not wake them now. She thinks back to the other exalted that they met. Did they have lightning bolts on them? They aren't sure. The only ones that they've met are Liliana and Odahan, and they have both been covered up. The party makes sure they have their factions right. The Ruby Vanguard is working with the Imperium, therefore Imperium is bad. At this point, the storm moves on, and there is time for the party to move. Lana tells Pate that they are on the moon, and he's very hyped about it. She tells him to go into the bag of holding and look around for the body of the Juggernaut, just to make sure if he's dead. He happily does so. They wait a second and then pull him back out. He saw nothing but a void. They realize at this point that everything that goes in kind of has its own space. FCG wants to just pull the Juggernaut's body out, so they do. But they pull him out and only his shoulder is able to stick out. But he is definitely dead. So at this point, FCG and Chetney decide to chop him up. Meanwhile, Ashton is trying to plant something over in the corner. The seed from the All Minds burn, but Imogen wants to plant it deeper because a fungus needs some sort of dark, damp space. Ashton agrees that they should plant it deeper, and they choose to plant it elsewhere. They put the limbs of the Juggernaut back in the bag of holding and its head, and they keep his cestus, which is like massive, like gauntlets that you use to punch things with. Lana puts Pate back in the bag as he can't transform into a gaseous form, and the party transform back into their cloud forms. They fly up in the direction that Imogen felt the other Rudisborn in, and they travel for an hour. They see the sunlight is disappearing, and nighttime is coming. They reach another mountain range that seems to fork off in different directions. They see more small herds of these buffalo creatures on the mountain sides, and off in the distance is flickering lights. Within the center of the mountain range, there is this village with more of these buffalo creatures. Very similar to Imogen's old home. Ashton wants to land and meet some of the locals. Lana wants to lose the Vanguard clothing first, just in case they aren't welcome. They fly down in cloud form, and they see that this is a small village. It's like a smaller version of Zephyra. The homes are all made of smooth rock, and there are odd plant life all around here in a sustained pattern, but they notice that only 20% of the people here are Ryloran. Most of them are squattier, shorter creatures or people. These are people that we have never seen before. They wear very thick, heavy clothes, and they look like statues from a distance. When they reach out and touch something, they can see that they have thick, meaty hands. They see some Juggernauts and some regular Rylorans, but they are nowhere near as armored as normal. They seem to be keeping watch and ordering the people around. There's definitely tension in the air. FCG wants to talk to the people to figure out what's going on here. The party wants to move in for a better look, but they aren't totally invisible in these gaseous forms. They look like dust devils with some sort of shape. Ashton tries to look like a regular dust devil, but it doesn't really work, and some of the locals see and become very confused by him. So he flies back up. As time goes on, the light fades more, and the details from this distance are being lost to the party. Imogen wants to leave because they only have a short time period with the gaseous form. But the others want to go into the town. As it gets darker, the lights in the houses begin to turn on. There's blue lights, green lights, and a little bit of purple lights. There doesn't seem to be any violence here. Chetney looks to see if this is a mining town or if it's more of a farming town or a livestock town. Chetney doesn't see a mine. It's mostly livestock, and there are no crops here. The only crop that there is the red bush that they saw before as they were flying over the rest of the open space they were flying over before. The buffalo creatures seem to eat this brush. The party talk about who will go down in the town, and they choose the higher charisma characters to do so. So, Laudna and Imogen. The party choose a spot to transform back. There's a storage hut. It's been left open by one of these squatty, short people. FCG, Fern, Imogen, Laudna, and Ashton all transform back to normal. Ashton goes down for muscle. FCG and Fern go down for backup as well. Mid-transformation, the short person that left the place open returns and flicks on his necklace light and sees the party half transformed back into their regular forms. So they're mid-transformation right now. Half of them is wind, half of them is regular. Imogen tells him not to scream. He has a cherub-like face with slits for a nose. Matt describes him as a muscular pod person from the Dark Crystal. I've only seen Dark Crystal once, so I had to look this up. And I remembered why I don't watch that movie anymore. Too many puppets for me. But I see what he's talking about. He asks who they are, and he speaks common. And that is where the episode ends. And there you have it, episode 83 of Campaign 3 of Critical Role. When we finally thought we were going to get some answers, we just get more questions. It seems to be a running theme in this campaign, that as we've been sort of moving along in this singular story, there's been a lot of questions with very few answers. So eventually we're going to start getting some good answers, and I'm very excited because we're in that time period. It seems like we're in that arc to learn all the answers that we need to, and I'm very excited. I actually am so hyped for this. To be on Ruidus, it's a joke that they've made that they're going to go into space eventually for a very long time, and they finally done it. So I'm very, very hyped for this. I'm very excited about all of the potential things they could do, see, I really want to learn the difference between the Imperium and the other groups of Ryloran. That's what I really want to learn the most, but for right now, I'm very satisfied with learning about these pod people. So, very, very excited for that. But anyway, fun episode for me. Very much liked it. Let me know what you guys thought down below, and I will see you guys on Tuesday for whatever video I make next. Peace.